And then, yeah, it's like screaming into the void in Twitter. Where, like, I don't know what it is that some people do to have meaningful conversations on Twitter. I suspect it to be on Twitter and virtue signal constantly.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Inside Comics. My name is George Michail, and today I'm super psyched. I'm joined by DANNY GORNY, creator of Sleepwalkers.
How's it going, George?
Yeah, I'm doing amazing, man. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
So your 110-page like graphic novel is on Kickstarter right now, and we're gonna get into the specifics of that. But before we do, I'd like to talk a little bit about being prepared. As a comic book creator, you want to be ready to go with some answers. Can you talk a little bit about like your origin story, for example?
Sure thing. So as a comics creator, I started off as a literary scholar, finishing my PhD in medieval lit. After 2008 was a really good way to get stuck right into real life. And after trying to figure out where to go, I realized actually I want to be using all the knowledge I have for stories to try and make new, interesting stories based on how I see the world. So that's how I started this project. And from there, I love doing comics. It's such a great challenge. I'm still at it.
And that's exactly what we're talking about, is having like an answer kind of ready to go that you can kind of pull out, and you're not just kind of like fumbling and trying to think of something. And can you give us the elevator pitch for Sleepwalkers?
Sure. Sleepwalkers is about how adulting sucks. My hero finishes school, degree in hand. There's no job waiting for her. And in her frustration, her subconscious starts leaving her body at night to do the things she can't in her real life. Be a superhero, make the world a better place.
Exactly. That is like perfect. That's awesome. And like for people that are out there watching this and they want to get into comics as well, this is what you need to be able to do. Someone asks you a question, you need to be able to answer it efficiently. Like nobody wants to hear like you ramble on and try and think of what happened or go off on like a tangent that doesn't matter or anything. They want the answer, and that's exactly what you provided for us. Can you talk a little bit more about just kind of promoting your work?
What do you want to know?
Well, it's just like, well, what have you been doing to get the word out on your project?
Sure, yeah. So I've been going to conventions. I've had like posters. I've got like prints of my art. I've had like a little piece of paper with like a QR code with the Kickstarter link on it, giving away some promotional bookmarks. I've been telling everybody about this project since I started it in like 2018. And I'm doing what I can on social media, posting art from it regularly on my Instagram and project updates. That's on there and on my Twitter as well. I'm harassing my friends on Facebook and doing the whole thing, doing what I can.
Yeah, and I've seen you on some other podcasts and YouTube shows as well.
Yeah, I've been really lucky with this project because it's so much more substantial. I've actually gotten responses to a lot of the queries I've sent out about podcasts and interviews. So that's really nice. I mean, I like talking about it, and the more I do these, the better prepared I am for future recordings like this one.
Yeah, no, you're a great guest, and this is like what anybody that has a podcast or YouTube show wants, is someone that knows what their stuff is. And I think you've demonstrated that really well. And so anyone watching, this is what you need to do. If you want to come on shows like this and you want to be a comic book creator, you got to be able to answer questions, because it's not enough to just make this stuff. You actually have to go out there and sell it and present it in a way that people understand and can consume it in a reasonable amount of time. Because when someone's in front of your table at a convention, you got a minute to talk to them before they're like, all right, like either you got me or you don't. And if you don't have them after a minute, they would just want to get out of there, and you're still talking to them. But let's get into Sleepwalkers specifically. Can you tell us a little bit more? It sounds like such a cool concept, because you've gotten out of high school, you're trying to be an adult now, and you're thinking about all the kind of superheroes and comic book stuff that you've grown up on, and imagining your life like that. And can you explain a little bit more about it, though?
Sure. So Now I'm curious, and for everyone back home, this is where you, for example, if you're at a table and you try to figure out what your audience wants. Does George want the longer pitch, or does he want me to just talk about why I'm doing the project? So I'm going to go with here is a bit more of the story. So yeah, my protagonist finishes school, degree in hand, and she's like up and rearing to change the world. She's got really, really big dreams, but having big dreams doesn't mean you can fulfill them. So while she's struggling to find work, she's frustrated by watching her friends get ahead, and it feels like these big dreams have become her nightmares. And what she doesn't know is that when she's asleep, her subconscious does the superhero thing, and it makes the world better in ways that she can't. So convinced that her life won't fail to start forever, she decides the only way to deal with the struggle is to push through it, risking her dignity and her future in the process. And that's when the real nightmares begin. So really, this is a story about the gap between the imagination and the reality of adult life, and what happens when you have trouble fitting in and you don't know why, and you start blaming yourself.
That's really interesting and cool. And I'm wondering, like, why did you decide to tell this story?
Well, luckily, you asked for my origin story, and my very, very brief one is sort of aligned with that. That feeling of not knowing when you're going to start adulting is, I think, characteristically millennial, but also it's very much a feeling that I felt every time I finished a degree or diploma, and still to a degree to this day do. Like, I've got this massive, I'm overselling this a little bit. I have a lot of anxiety about whether or not I truly fit in places where I'm working and what I'm doing. And at my age, I've got like friends who are getting married and having kids and, that sort of thing. And I know the problem isn't really me, but I continually suspect it is. So this project is probably the closest thing I will ever have written to autobiography, in the sense that I'm definitely working through some of my experiences with being incredibly competent and able and willing to do things, just not really having the opportunity for whatever reason that's beyond me.
It seems really interesting to me because, like, for myself, I was in a big car accident, and then that was kind of like the thing that kind of motivated me to kind of finally pursue a career in comic books, because I had been really afraid of putting myself out there. I know other people that have had like a loved one pass away, and then they're like, okay, like, I should try and live my life the best I can, and I should try and pursue these things that I want to do, and that sends them down a creative path. And it sounds like for you, kind of like an anxiety around, kind of growing up and becoming an adult, and then just kind of like maybe dissatisfaction or seeing other people like lives kind of progress, and this is like the kind of catalyst that kind of propelled you forward into a comic book creating career.
Yeah, certainly. I don't think it's a condition unique to myself, and everyone has their own origin story. I think really one of the things that's really great about being a creator is being able to take both your hopes and your fears and put them on the page and work through stuff. I really genuinely don't write as like some kind of therapy. I know I'm coming off like that, but that's really helpful. And being like this sort of desire to like leave a mark is, I think, something that we all share, and that feeling of fulfillment when you finish the project is what we're all aiming for. And then ideally the feeling of joy when you introduce that project to new people and it somehow helps them or even just entertains them.
Can you tell me about the rest of the team on this project?
Sure thing. So the team's pretty big. I've been working on this for a while. I did story writing with my friend Diana Gunn. She is a novelist. And a lot of the work for this sort of started when I was like, I spent a lot of my time growing up being like, no, I want to study stories, not write them. And working with her on something else, we got a good rapport going on, and she really helped me sort of stay accountable as we wrote through the story, and then to a degree for the script. So that sort of started off with her. I did a lot of the script writing. My friend Amy Brander, the Frog Queen on Twitter, who used to do sort of a comics creators interview sort of podcast like yours, she introduced me to Greg Woronchak, my illustrator. So because I was someone who had nothing done, it was like I was reaching out to people, but it was really hard to find someone who could work with me or who I could afford to work with. So she connected me with Greg. He's based out of Ottawa. He's great. We drew the book. And then once I had some art, I went out on Facebook and here are my lines. I'm looking to audition colorists. So I find a colorist through a group on Facebook, Felipe Obondo. He's out of Costa Rica. Found a letterer, Marco Della Verde. He's from Italy, is great. So I've got all these people all sort of everywhere that I've been working with and communicating with. And so we finished a lot of the primary production. And then I just sort of really wanted to sanity check this and again, make sure I stuck the landing. So I went, Steve Cole, who's the founder of the Comic Book Editors Alliance, he was recommended to me by someone, and we'd been talking before about comics editing on Facebook. So I hired him. Hey, let's give it a read. Let's update the dialogue if I need to. Let's, make sure this story is telling the story is trying to tell and not going off base. And yeah, we did that. Oh, and then there's also Kenny Lamb, my cover artist. I met him at the Toronto Comic Arts Festival in 2019. Bought one of his pieces. I was like, yep, this style, let's go. It's got that like Dave McKean edge and like really great, slightly off reality figure work and painting. And it's really perfect for this project and really gets the mood across.
That's awesome. I think it's really cool that you spent the money to get an editor. A lot of indie comics people like skip that step, and it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I do a lot of editing work, and I really love it. Like, it makes me a better writer. It lets me collaborate with more people, and it really takes advantage of the skills I have as a reader from all the time I spent studying literature. So there are so many parts of a comic to edit. Honestly, it's a lot more work than you might think if you haven't created a comic before. Because you've got your script, and then that has to get translated into art, and then depending on what stage you're at, that's like thumbnails, pencils, and inks. Usually you don't have to make a lot of notes on the inks if you're doing it right. But this is the first book I created, so we still have to go back for some of that stuff. And then how's the color stuff? Like, I'm not great with color theory. I'm still learning that. How's the lettering? How's the font sizing? What about the balloon placement? What about the balloon shapes? What about the font choice? What about the sound effects? And then that's in addition to the whole feel of the whole book. Does it actually do what it's supposed to do? So where if you're like editing a novel or a script, you're really limited to, does this do the one thing? When you're editing a comic, like, I'm more of a dialogue and script editor. I'm okay with line work now. I'm still not great with colors, but I learned how to letter, so I'm okay with that. You can have like really art-driven editors who are like, no, let's work on the art. Let's make sure the art works. And then you've got, really like look and feel and mood editors who are really great with color and maybe not great with reading words. Not that they won't do it, but sometimes that's not what they're focusing on if that's what you're looking for. So there's so many people to work with, but really at every stage of the process, it's useful to have a sanity check and to make sure that you're giving your customers a polished looking product. And although I had other books done, I just really wanted to make sure I stuck it. So I needed to have someone who was really fresh to the project. And that turned out to be a good fit. So.
And you did stick it on this project. And I'm wondering if we're just kind of wrapping up here, if you can give like kind of one last reason, if people are still watching on YouTube and they want to, need just a little bit more convincing, why should people go get this book?
this is a book that faces many of the terrifying dystopian realities of the current world and tells you, yeah, it can be better and you should work for it.
Awesome. Well, Sleepwalkers is available now on Kickstarter. Go and back that book. There's a link in the description of this video. Danny Gorny, I want to thank you for being on Inside Comics.
George, thanks so much for having me. Look forward to doing this again.
Awesome. Peace.